What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Drake's Takes. I am your host, Drake Riggs. Got another good lineup of topics for you guys today. Let's just get right into it, shall we? Here with the lineup today, we will be talking about the RIZIN 16-man Bantamweight Grand Prix, where they just announced all of the participants and got the matchups figured out, all that fun stuff. We'll be talking about that first and then segueing into more tournament talk. So many tournaments going on these days. DEEP Jewels 33, want to quickly kind of touch on, what is happening with that as they just announced their semifinals as well, getting close to crowning a new atomweight champion. Two atomweight tournaments going on at the moment, or one about to begin over in one championship, as we discussed last time. So want to talk about that a little bit. And then we have Bellator is back. You guys, this week it is March 31st at the time of recording. Bellator 255 on Friday. What is that? April? Give me a second. April 2nd. Yes, April. How funny. Give me a second for April 2nd. Bellator 255, Pitbull versus Sanchez 2. Gonna tell you what I think is maybe the best fight of that card and who to look out for. All that good stuff. Bellator finally back with a bang. And then, last but not least, we have a rematch, champion versus champion rematch over in KSW 60. It is going to be Thomas Narcoon versus Phil DeFries 2. Didn't expect that one to get announced, but we will get into that when we get there. So, first task at hand today, everybody. RIZIN stuff. Cannot go wrong with anything RIZIN is doing, right? I mean, they've done so well with what they've had to work with during the pandemic and the limited options where they've practically exclusively been working with domestic fighters. So their Japanese roster, in terms of Japanese fighters exclusively. And that is what this 16-man tournament consists of. 16 fighters, 16 of Japan's best bantamweights, coming in from Shuto, Pancrase, Deep, you name it. It's a big combination of all of Japan's biggest and best promotions meeting in the biggest and best promotion. I think that is safe to say over in Japan. That is RIZIN. And man, it's just fun. Just really a fun way to do this how they put together the tournament specifically. So they, generally RIZIN, what they like to do is hold a press conference for their fight announcements. That's kind of how they put them all out there. The fighters will be there. They'll talk to the media a little bit. It's a big, it's always it's a little fun, way to present the fights and them doing it without, kind of the media spoiling it as we're so used to seeing here in the, on our side of the world when it comes to usually UFC, Bellator, of course. So RIZIN, what they decided to do was get together all of the fighters, the 16 fighters, reveal them all at this press conference. And not only that, they did the matchups in kind of a random lottery style. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I did, of all the notes I put up here for today, that's not what I included, but I know that it was kind of like a seeding where everybody was random except for, I believe, Kai Asakura, who is the former champion, of course. And, speaking of that, I guess I should get into the notes and the details here of what we ended up with. So where are we here? Yes, 16-man tournament. That means 8 fights. And what we ended up getting was Takafumi Atsuka versus Hiroyuki Yamashita, also known as Shian, who just recently got a very nice win at RIZIN 27. Then Kiya Ito takes on Yuto Hakamura. That is Kintaro as well. For some of you may know him by his nickname. Very fun fighter. Yuki Mitoya, the veteran, is back as well. Of course, he had to be in this, taking on Ryo Okada. Kai Asakura, as I mentioned, taking on Shuto Watanabe. Very interesting one. We will get to that. Kenta Takizawa is in this, taking on Masakazu Imanari. That's probably the wild card of this whole thing. Did not expect to see an Imanari mention or decide of him whatsoever. Then we have Kazuma Kuramoto taking on Alan that last name really tripped me up there. Yamaniwa, right? And then Takeshi Kasugai versus Hiromasa Okigubo. And last but not least, Naoki Inoue versus Shintaro Ishiwatari. So, man, like, as I said, with what RIZIN has had to work with throughout this entire time period, the pandemic, they have done just an excellent job of putting things together. And this was just the funnest way, the most fun, if I'm going to be grammatically correct there, the most fun way to put together such a massive tournament. And, with the fighters kind of figuring out who they're fighting themselves, because that was how it worked. They would draw their numbers and then they got to pick kind of the seats. It's hard to know exactly how the process went because don't speak Japanese, but they were having Shingo, I believe, do the notes on the RIZIN English Twitter account, so you can go and check those out. There's a lot to it though, so I didn't include it all here today, but you can check that out if you want to know the exact specifics. But what we do know for sure is that RIZIN's next two cards, RIZIN 28 and 29, the opening round here between all these guys will be sorted out. 4 fights will be on the first card, RIZIN 28, and then RIZIN 29. The week after that will be the other 4. So we're deciding who goes on in the matter of a week, which is very nice to see. Well, back-to-back RIZIN shows in a week. Generally, they have done back-to-back days in the past, as we saw when they returned from the little hiatus last year because of the pandemic kicking up. But RIZIN 28 takes place on May 23rd in the Tokyo Dome. So, of course, the Tokyo Dome, legendary venue, very iconic, place to perform no matter what it is, sporting events or musical events. That's kind of the place you want to be. So expecting a very big show for RIZIN. This was supposed to take place for the last event. It was supposed to be this month, March. I think they wanted to do 7th initially when things were around New Year's time when they first announced this idea. But of course, the virus is still very much a thing. But the Tokyo Dome generally has a max capacity of 42,000, 55,000 to 55,000. I feel like for some reason it has been bigger in the past. I'm not totally sure about that, but as of right now, I believe that is the total capacity. And then because of the pandemic, they're capping it at 10,000, which is what we would expect for this show, RIZIN 28, depending on, how the virus situation continues over there, which RIZIN would like to have more than just 10,000, obviously. So see how that goes. And then the week after, RIZIN 29, May 30th, that will be in the Maruzen Intech Arena in Osaka. And that should have no issues there. Not sure what exactly the venue size is for that one, but half capacity, I believe, is what they're generally doing. So 5,000, if I'm remembering correctly, is usually what the max has been, for all these other shows that we've gotten since things picked back up in August of last year. So yeah, guys, for this tournament, winner gets a pretty good prize too, aside from a likely title shot, or you have to think the winner gets a title shot, and I'll get into that here in a second. But as for reward in terms of money and all that fun stuff, $10 million in yen. That is the grand prize there, and that equals out to excuse me, $91,000 in American currency, USD, as they would say. And then that is for the winner, and the runner-up will receive 5 million yen. So that is equaling out to 45,000, which, just for comparison's sake, you guys, if you're like not sure about who some of these Japanese fighters are that are in this tournament, and if we're going to look at experience, for example, looks like, just looking at the numbers, scanning them right here, Xian with an 8-8 record of 16 total fights. I think that is the lowest amount of fights for him, but just for comparison's sake, runner-up in this tournament will receive $45,000. UFC contracts for prospects generally entering in, what is it, around, it's 12-12 right now, unless that has changed. So 12-12 means $12,000 to show, $12,000 to win. So 24 max. And this is only for the 45 is for runner-up. They're going to be making money on the way to that, of course. So very interesting. It's very interesting when you look at that. Good prize incentive and just a really fun opportunity to be a part of a big tournament like this, where the winner has to take on Kyoji Horiguchi. This is not confirmed, but that has to be the case, and that's why he's not in it, because he's very busy with very likely very likely going on to try and recapture the Bellator title that he did not lose, currently held by Juan Archuleta, and he'll be challenged for that against Sergio Pettis. I believe that is at the end of April. There's just so many fights going on right now in April, you guys, that are coming up, that hard to keep track of them all, but I know that fight is coming up very soon. And yeah, very likely he will look to take on the winner of that fight, but potentially have a fight in the meantime, see about opponents, what can be done. But while all that's going on, he'll have another contender getting sorted out here in this tournament. So, it's very, very exciting to see. So he is an obvious omission, but an expected one, at least, I think, for those who have been paying attention and, in the know, you could say. But also it's surprising to see that Ulka Sasaki is not in the tournament. And it sounds like he appears to be interested in going up to featherweight now, a former UFC flyweight, and he looked very huge in his last fight. His return after the broken jaw that he suffered against Kaya Sakura, his last fight against Kenta Takizawa, who is in this tournament. Ulka packed on the muscle like crazy, man. So I guess it makes sense that he, maybe he doesn't think he can make bantamweight at the same rate that he's going to have to for this tournament after packing on all that muscle. And now he wants to fight Mikuru Asakura, it looks like, which, why not aim for that, man? Aside from the champion, that's the best fight to have. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that Mikuru and Yutaka Saito are going to run that one back. And who doesn't want to see that? But as for this tournament specifically, you guys, biggest surprise, I think, has to be that Imanari is in this. His last fight took place in one. The guy has a boatload of experience. If you think about the Imanari role, Matsukazu Imanari, that's the guy right there. 38-19-2. Just vastly experienced in this tournament compared to everybody. But everybody does have a good amount of experience. And I just noticed Kazuma Kuramoto is actually the least experienced guy. I pointed out Sheehan, but Kuramoto is 8-1, a phenomenal prospect. So he's actually the least experienced. Got to make a correction there. So, and a dark horse, I believe, to win this. The guy, man, he looked phenomenal in his RIZIN debut at RIZIN 26. Didn't even need that fantastic wrestling he's got in his back pocket to get a very nice finish early on. So I like him as a sleeper if we're going to get into that kind of talk. But Imanari, big surprise, taking on Kenta Takizawa. Winnable matchup for him, especially if he gets Kenta to the ground. That is where we've seen Kenta struggle. On the feet, gets very, very interesting. Kenta is probably one of the longer, rangier bantamweights in this tournament, along with Naoki, who, you could argue should get the next title shot, but excuse me, has to really work for it and, to win through this now. And Kaya Sakura is a very long and lanky, large bantamweight as well, the former champ. So Imanari and Kenta is going to be very interesting. All of these fights should be very interesting. It worked out very nicely. Naoki versus Shintaro Ishiwatari. Those guys rarely put on bad fights, either of them. So when they meet, should be very fun. And of course, I think one that probably stands out, or the one that stands out most to everybody, is Kai's fight against Shuto, if you watched RIZIN 27, he got the win over Takumi Tamaru, who, it was a bit of a comeback a little bit because Takumi really controlled him there in that first round, which was a bit of a surprise, and got his back and wasn't able to finish it off. And then turns the tide in the second round. I think a lot of people were kind of sleeping on Shuto. Probably, I know I was, probably because of his loss to Naoki. I believe that was a minute 40 that Shuto got finished by him, submission. But, Shuto Watanabe, be a very good grappler, as he's proven consistently throughout his career, and reminded us, stop sleeping on me, man. Takumi, very good prospect. He will be back, but his time isn't now. I'm taking that spot in the tournament. Now he's taking on the former champ. That's going to be something. If he can pull that off, you imagine Kaya Sakura losing in the first round. It's possible in this matchup if Shuto can really, work his ground game, get him to the ground. But other than that, it's probably a striker versus grappler matchup. I don't see Shuto being very competitive with him on the feet. But we're not making predictions today, just kind of looking at the overall scope of this tournament, everybody. So I believe also that they're hoping that it is going to be wrapped up by November time, or maybe so that then the winner could take on Horiguchi or potentially Archuleta. You kind of see, or Pettis, I guess, whatever shakes out there. There is so much going on at bantamweight worldwide. But the end of this tournament will be around New Year's, obviously. So we'll see how that all plays out. Good, fun stuff there, as always, from RIZIN. I love the way that they did this. It was very fun. If you guys did not see that press conference, how they sorted this all out, go on to YouTube, their YouTube channel, check it out, because it was very fun to see that unfold. And, if you don't speak Japanese, definitely check out the notes on RIZIN English, the RIZIN English Twitter account too. While you're watching, definitely will help out with understanding how the whole process went. But it was very neat. I would love to see more of that done, not only by RIZIN, but, from other people as well. So from one tournament, we go on to another. Just so much tournament action happening these days. And sticking with the Japan theme, gotta highlight the DEEP Jewels Atomweight tournament a little bit more than I already have in other spots aside from Drake's takes. But DEEP Jewels 33 is confirmed now, May 5th in the Karuken Hall in Bunkyo, Tokyo. Continuing on, finishing up the Atomweight title tournament. Semifinals have been announced. We have Aya Murakami versus Hikaru Aono and Saori Oshima versus Siwoo Park 2, the rematch. And in a reserve bout, there will be Emi Tamimatsu taking on Nisei, and they are two of the losers from the tournament, the 8-woman tournament that this is. And, we're down to 4, the final 4. And also taking place on that card, DEEP Jewels 33, we got the strawweight title fight, which is also a rematch between very hot prospect Seika Ozawa, who's 2-0, taking on Miki Mitono once again. This rematch was actually supposed to take place at DEEP Jewels 32, which was the last event earlier this month, where they kicked off the tournament. Instead, Mitono suffered an injury, so Seika went on to grapple Megumi Sugimoto and finished her in just 58 seconds with a rear naked choke. Very, very impressive. This girl is with her grappling. Definitely somebody to look out for in the strawweight division, and she could win a champion. She could win a championship and become a champion in only her 3rd fight. So she's definitely one to look out for. And Miki Mitono is also a very solid fighter, 5-2 with her only losses to Seika Izawa, and then Casey O'Neill, who's in the UFC now, and great debut she had recently. So they're both fighters to keep an eye on. DEEP Jewels, you guys, if you don't keep up with it, which I'm sure you might not, but if you're here, then there's a chance you do, because I like to hit on all avenues. But DEEP Jewels, Japan's version of Invicta, essentially the all-female organization over there, and the all-female version of DEEP. DEEP Impact is what we see, where they do have female and male fights, but of course, mostly the male promotion there. DEEP Jewels, or DEEP overall, just had their 20-year anniversary recently with DEEP 100 Impact. So doing good stuff there, and more tournaments, as I said. So I said lottery style a little bit, a kind of a very unique lottery style that we got from RIZIN with that Bantamweight Grand Prix. DEEP Jewels has been known for doing the lottery style, and after the opening round, no bracket, did it again, and we wound up with Murakami versus Aono and Oshima versus Park 2. I wish that we would have got Oshima versus Aono, and then Murakami versus Park 2, just for the sake of freshness. I love to see kind of fresh things shake out, and then that would build to potentially a big rematch between Oshima and Park 2, which we're getting now, or another fresh one with Murakami versus Park. Yes, if I'm getting a little all over the place now, but assuming that makes sense in my head and came out properly. But just to look at the people who are left here in the tournament, you guys, I'm not going to go too much into it, but just want to break down the fighters a little bit, because these are all 4 very good prospects at atomweight, 105 pounds, who have potential to make it very far and become top tier fighters and potentially go on to RIZIN. And I don't want to say one, because one's atomweight division isn't really 105 pounds atomweight. Invicta, potentially they could, if they wanted to make that jump from DEEP Jewels after becoming champion or what have you. But a lot of potential with all 4 of these girls, and some more than others. We will get into that right now. So starting with Aya Murakami, she is advancing after getting a bye. She is 1-0 right now. She got a bye after Sakura Ami. No, I always do that. Sakura Mori, Sakura Mori, not Emi Sakura, who is the professional wrestler. Sakura Mori, who is the 17-year-old who beat Eru Takabayashi, who Takabayashi is also going to be on this card. Sakura beat her at RIZIN 26, the very first bout of the night. Very impressive. Both of them looked very good. It was a quick fight, but they looked very good. Sakura missed weight in that RIZIN fight. She was in this tournament, was supposed to take on Murakami in the opening round. Sakura missed weight again. She probably should not keep trying to make atom weight. She is still young, 17, as I said, but if she's struggling like this right now, probably shouldn't do it. So, misses weight, can't compete in the tournament, just not fair. So, Murakami gets the bye. She's fresh going into the semifinals. Positive or negative? Not really sure. Her last fight, her only professional fight, she has had an amateur fight and a professional fight. Her professional bout was, I want to say, DEEP Jewels 30. I just watched it the other day. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it wasn't too long ago. Aya Murakami is a BJJ black belt, very talented on the ground with her submission game, but clearly the greenest fighter out of all four of these. And she's taken on Hikaru Aono, who is the wrestler really of DEEP Jewels at the moment. Very strong wrestling game, and that's practically all that she is at the moment. Still has a lot of developing to do in her overall game. And actually, to go back to Shuto Watanabe, the girlfriend of Shuto, she was there in his corner for his last fight against Takumi. Yeah, Hikaru is a very, very good wrestler, but that's just kind of all she is at the moment. Has a lot of growing left to do, and this fight 100% is going to go to the ground, where it's going to be its most interesting, because if it's on the feet, it's going to be probably pretty ugly. So it is interesting from that point to see if, wrestling versus BJJ, that is what we're going with here. And then Saori Oshima versus Siwoo Park 2. Good rematch. First fight was very good. Saori Oshima getting into this round. And I should backtrack a little bit. Hikaru Aono defeated Nisei, who is in that reserve bout, as I mentioned, pretty much just by, kind of holding her down. And actually, no, she did not beat Nisei. I'm all over the place now. I can't remember off the top of my head. I didn't put her in my notes, but she got a wrestler's victory. Let's put it that way. You can see all these fights on DEEP Jewels' YouTube channel, by the way, you guys, and I would recommend checking them out if you're interested in the tournament. And if you didn't know about it before and whatnot, just a great channel to follow, because they put up all the fights there after they happen and what have you. So Saori Oshima, though, very, very impressive prospect. Incredible killer instinct for, her inexperience in MMA. 4-2, just got her win over Emi Tamimatsu to progress in this tournament. And man, 45-second Kimura Oshima got against Tomimatsu, who Emi Tamimatsu, in the twilight of her career, has never been the tippy top best, but a perennial notable name and, a key figure at atomweight, regardless of her record being 15-18 now, 30 plus fights. Though the experience level and edge that she had going into this made me think that she should probably be a favorite. But boy, Oshima shut me up big time with a 45-second submission. Only the second person to beat Tomimatsu in the first round in all of those fights. The last time it happened was in Tomimatsu's debut. So that just tells you a little bit about how ridiculous that win was. Aside from her just beating her in general, but the way that she did it, very ridiculous. I think she has a very bright future, but she's taking on Siwoo Park here in this rematch, where right before the Tomimatsu fight, Park and Oshima fought, and Oshima had good success early. She is absolutely relentless with her attacks for takedowns and trying to get her opponents to the ground, because she's most comfortable there with her jiu-jitsu as well. Not sure if she's a black belt, but very talented grappler. That is where she's most comfortable. Striking, not quite up to par there. Siwoo Park really kind of shut her down and defended everything as the fight went on. And if we're going to talk about Siwoo Park, she should definitely win this tournament, because first of all, she has already beaten Oshima and Aono, and she has a win over Tomimatsu as well. She is pretty much a Sohee Ham Jr., and they are teammates, out of South Korea, and She is the real deal. 5-fight winning streak. She lost her 2 fights in MMA, I believe. Has dabbled in kickboxing, has a loss to Rena Panchan, which no shame whatsoever in that, kind of to be expected, but she still took on that challenge, survived, went the full distance. Yeah, Siwoo Park is definitely going places, and in my books, already a top 15 atomweight in the world. I think I have her at about 13 in my personal rankings. So yeah, she should be the favorite here. I mean, should have been probably starting things out and continues to be after a very solid win. She beat Nisei. That's who it was that beat Nisei. So I was all confused there. A very solid win. Check that one out. A good performance. And check out the Aono fight if you want to see, man, some power for Atomweight's Park with a just nasty knockout over Aono when they fought at DEEP Jewels, I think 30. It might have actually been on just a regular deep card. But either way, Siwoo Park has beaten half the tournament before it even started, and she's probably going to become champion. Definitely will go on to RIZIN someday, maybe Invicta, as I said, wherever these fighters want to end up. But she is very, very good. Should be able to win this again. But the matchup here and the biggest problem is probably going to be Oshima for her going forward because of, just that relentlessness and the killer instinct that Oshima possesses. It's very rare, I would say, from these lighter weight classes kind of to have that kind of killer instinct. I always point out Rose Namajunas as somebody who has one that is a great example of, man, when she finds something, some opening, she is on it. I see that in Oshima as well. So it is dangerous for Park in that regard, but she keeps it on the feet. It's going to look exactly the same way as the first fight, and she will want to keep it there. She's got great takedown defense and phenomenal striking, easily the best striker in this entire tournament. So yeah, Siwoo Park is going places. I think Saori Oshima is definitely going places too. Still got a lot to learn about Murakami. Aono really needs to expand her overall arsenal, especially in the striking and just being more active when getting people down. She's very good at getting them down, but you got to be active and do some damage once you get there. So yeah, it's an interesting tournament though, you guys, just from looking at the matchups and all the fighters, because I think they all have potential to go places, as I said. Some more than others. Park is most likely to get a big jump up here soon, especially if she wins the title and representing South Korea proudly, I believe. Maybe the only Korean fighter in DEEP Jewels right now, and looking very, very solid. So keep an eye out for that if you like some atomweight action, you guys, and want to see some fighters who will have bright futures, I think. So wanted to highlight them. Before we get to Bellator 255, Bellator is back, as I said off the top, you guys, and starting off with the Bellator GOAT is how they're kicking things off in the main event, right? Patricio Pitbull Freire taking on Emmanuel Sanchez. Let me speak, damn it. In a rematch, title rematch for the featherweight crown. Of course, Patricio Pitbull is a 2-division champion, holds the lightweight title after knocking off Michael Chandler at Bellator 221. He will not let us forget about it. Chandler's success apparently makes him better and better, he says. And I said that very snarkily, but no, it is a good point. I agree with him for the most part. I think he exaggerates a bit, but he has to. I mean, why wouldn't you, man? Like when you go and see that guy go and do his thing, use the MMA math to your advantage in that case. But that is a whole different story and topic. Road to go down. Patricio Pitbull, Emmanuel Sanchez too. That is the headliner. Plenty of other great fights on this card. Mohegan Sun, they are back in the fight sphere, as they call it. And they're back again on Showtime is Scott Coker and a promotion of his. So going to be very exciting. And I believe actually they announced earlier today that the entire card, I think for this one at least, will be available on YouTube, because international viewers were kind of struggling with how to watch because Showtime is not available to everybody in that case, as far as I know. So yeah, should be free on YouTube this Friday, April 2nd, everybody. And we got some good action. As I said, the rematch between Pitbull and Sanchez. So without breaking anything down too specifically, when it comes to the best fight on this card, I kind of want to highlight that. And, I'd be lying if it wasn't the obvious choice of the main event. I mean, come on, it's Pitbull, one of the best fighters in the world today, 2 division champion. Like I said, the Bellator GOAT. I know people can try and argue that, but I think he's got it pretty locked at the moment. Taking on Emmanuel Sanchez, who very slept on, very, very slept on, has looked incredible since their first fight. And I think that him being so overlooked against a Pitbull who he did very well against, and I think some people kind of thought that fight was closer than it was, but he had some very good moments of success, especially if you look at other fighters who have taken on Pitbull recently. The guy is just a goddamn savage, and he rightfully should be favored. He absolutely should. He's probably going to win. He's probably going to go on to the finals. We're going to get that dream matchup between him and AJ McKee, which, man, just gets you salivating at thinking about it, which really, it sucks to say for Emmanuel Sanchez because he is a very, very good featherweight, one of the best in the world, probably top 20 worldwide if I was to break out my rankings again, as I just did for the atom weights. But man, work cut out for him. Pitbull continually getting better. His confidence is at an all-time high. But I think that Sanchez is probably an all-time high too, and probably feels very comfortable having fought Pitbull the first time and improved significantly since then. He's looked like a killer in his recent bouts. So that fight is going to be very interesting, very intriguing. If it is not, then man. And the only way that it isn't is if one of those guys starches the other or dominates, which most likely that would be Pitbull. Sanchez probably not going to be the one to do that. As I said, it's just not likely. If he does, holy shit. But if Pitbull does, also holy shit. So it's like, that's why you should tune in for this fight alone, for this card alone, really. But aside from that, there is plenty of intrigue down the whole thing. I mean, I don't know why my mind went to that when I saw his name, so that could be why. But Roger Huerta's back, so take that for what it is. One of the saddest falls from grace in the sport's history. Really, if you go back to the UFC days, if you know about Huerta, you know what I'm talking about. Don't need to get too into it, but guy keeps on chugging along, hasn't fought since 2019. Now he's taken a significant step down, but going against a very tough prospect in Chris Gonzalez. This fight is on the prelims. Roger Huerta has been relegated to the prelims now, so the Bellator prelims at that. So is what it is, but his fights are generally still always exciting as they were on his rise to fame. For that Clay Guida fight, put him on the Sports Illustrated cover, and here we are now in 2021. That was a while ago that Clay Guida fight happened. Takes two to tango, though, as well. So, but in terms of other people that you should keep an eye on, I mean, we've already been talking about RIZIN in Japan and DEEP Jewels. If you think I'm not going to mention Kana Watanabe, one of the best judokas in the game? Yeah, I'm gonna. She's undefeated still. She's making her return to Bellator, not her debut. Her debut was at Bellator 237 back in December of 2019. Yes, she didn't get to fight at all last year. Nobody to fight. Pandemic really hurt her, all that stuff. But now she's getting the option. She has a home loaded with talent. You love to see it. Taking on Alejandra Lara. Going to be a very good fight. And Kana is the underdog in this one, which don't necessarily agree with. I think that the odds should be flipped. I think it's around minus 130, plus 130-ish, for Lara being the minus as the favorite. I get it. People have seen Lara more. Her striking's looked very good, and she's looked very good in general in these last two fights since dropping to the former champion now in Alima, and then the new champion, Juliana Velasquez. Those are her last two losses. And she got the win over Taylor Turner and Vita Ortega. Brilliant performances in both of those, but I don't think they really showed that she's, plugged the hole. That I didn't want to say that. It sounds weird, but the defensive hole, grappling wise, because that was kind of the primary way that Alima beat her for sure. I mean, she won with an armbar, and really had her way on the ground for the most part. Yes, Alima, very, very good grappler, in her own right, very talented jiu-jitsu, great jiu-jitsu. Kana Watanabe, though, also a very good grappler. As I said, black belt in judo, incredibly strong, just built for flyweight. The frame, the strength that she has, all of that, hits very hard. Striking is obviously her weak point, but her judo is tippy top. She gets a hold of you, you're probably going for a ride. So look out for Kana, now in this new setting. I believe her first fight in America, because she's only fought in DEEP Jewels and RIZIN. So an alum of the promotions we just talked about, and just a phenomenal, flyweight on the rise. Somebody who has been competing for a while just in her life overall. So great for her to get this opportunity. The first fight of her new fancy 4-fight deal with Bellator. And then, aside from her at bantamweight, Magomed Magomedov is back, you guys. I mean, this guy is an absolute monster, as I'm sure if you saw in his Bellator debut, which was his last fight. I think December, one of the last Bellator events they had before their little break here and figuring things out to open up again for this one. Magomedov is just an animal with his grappling and, a solid striker as well. The only man to have beaten Peter Yan until Peter Yan got DQ'd. So that is also his only loss. He's 17-1, I think. 17-1, 18-1. Magomedov gonna be fighting for that title one day. And man, oh man, a fight between him and Archuleta right now, as well as Horiguchi. Sign me all the way up. Sign me all the way up. The bantamweight division, ridiculous across the board. It is so good. And Magomedov is reasons why. Don't even talk about him as the best in the world, but he can hang with them. That's when a division is loaded. And he's not the only guy. That's just the one we're talking about right now. So, yeah. Mandel Nalo is back as well. And then Usman Nurmagomedov on the main card. That is after the Kana fight. A lot of good talent. And I haven't even mentioned the co-main event. The co-main event is probably, I hate to be the guy pointing out the top 2 fights on the card as the ones to watch, but that's kind of how it is. I like the Kana and Lara one a lot. The stylistic clash there, very good. But I already highlighted Kana as a person to, watch out of people specifically. So, and I mean, Huerta Gonzalez could also be, something. Turn out to be crazy because that's Roger Huerta. But Neiman Gracie versus Jason Jackson. You kidding me? Come on. That's going to be great. Neiman Gracie just got, I don't know why I said it that way. I apologize, but that was my way of saying great jiu-jitsu. Neiman Gracie. Got the win over John Fitch, retired John Fitch with that one. The guy could submit just about anybody, has looked very good throughout his entire Bellator career outside of some hiccups. The Rory McDonald one, Rory was able to shut him down for the most part, but that's Rory, who has still been very kind of underappreciated and underrated, I think, since leaving the UFC. And taking on a guy in Jason Jackson is Neiman Gracie. Jason Jackson, what a career he's begun to have and is beginning to kind of have. If you remember him, he was on The Ultimate Fighter 21 or 22 or 21. I always get those mixed up because there was the Conor Faber one and then the Black Zillions versus was it ATT? Was that the teams that it was? And he was on one of those. I've blanked out a lot of tough memories, as I'm sure most of us have, but he was on that season and he had the crazy fight with oh man, what was the one guy? I don't even remember, but he had the crazy fight where there was all the controversy about the referee stoppage, which was absolutely insane. If you have not seen that, I wish I had it up here, but I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to make you guys do it if you are interested. So I apologize. But Jason Jackson, the point is, he has carved out a pretty solid career for himself since the tough days and not making it to the UFC, fresh off of a dominant victory over Benson Henderson, former, UFC lightweight champion, WEC lightweight champion, one of the best lightweights of all time. Of course, that was at welterweight. Now that is where Jason Jackson primarily fights. Very big guy, a lot of power. His striking has just looked very good lately. His defense, his takedown defense too, in that Benson fight in particular, just a phenomenal performance for him. And taking on Neiman, who is a very good grappler. As I mentioned, don't really need to say more about him. You just know. But in terms of Gracie's too, maybe the best striker in Gracie family history. I might throw out Kron Gracie because he was able to go toe-to-toe with Cub Swanson. That's fair. And I could be forgetting one because there's so many. But excuse me. It's going to be interesting, you guys. Winner of that fight, you would think very likely could get a title shot. Even though I could be forgetting Lima having a booking here. There's the rankings that just came out, which have MVP at number 1, which I think that's all You just need that reaction from me to know about that, and I think many people agree. There's Yaroslav, or was it Amasov, the undefeated guy. I'm all scrambled about this. I apologize, everybody, but the welterweight division, it's another one where you can't really go wrong with it in really anywhere in the world. So Neiman Gracie and Jason Jackson. Jason Jackson in particular, if he could go out there and finish Neiman, I mean, would love to see him take on Lima. And what a story that would kind of be. As I mentioned, a roller coaster a little bit, especially when we first really started to hear about him. So that is Bellator 255, you guys, and I'm excited for it. It's good to have Bellator back. Just a great stretch of events that they will be putting on, as well as one getting ready to go here. Don't have one on the lineup, but one on TNT is starting next week at the time of recording, and they'll get rolling as well. So action-packed with MMA coming up, aside from the UFC, everybody. So 2021 really getting rolling. And of course, you guys, I can't have Drake's Takes without some KSW love here after a big fight announcement. April 24th, we have KSW 60 coming up, the big number 60, and they're going big. Champ versus champ fight, champ versus champ rematch, actually. Heavyweight king Phil DeFries, former UFC vet, taking on the light heavyweight king, the draft, Thomas Narkun. Once again, the rematch is going down. Didn't expect this. Didn't really expect this to happen, but of course, you got to go big for number 60, right? As I said. Yeah, both of they fought twice and won twice since their first encounter in 2019, March 2019, KSW 47. Phil DeFries ended up getting the better of Narkun, and as much as I love Thomas Narkun, one of the best light heavyweights on the planet, I believe top 10, I think, worldwide. This guy is legit, very, very talented. I don't know. He went, and I say that because you went up to heavyweight, take on DeFries. DeFries just kind of out-wrestled him and, didn't lay and pray his way to a decision, but he pretty much took him down every round and won a pretty clear decision. It wasn't too crazy of a fight, a little bit disappointing. And, since then, immediately after, actually, DeFries, as good as he has been since leaving the UFC, and rides a 7-fight winning streak now with a win over Narkun, which very big win for him, as good as Narkun is, especially divisionally. Right after the Narkun fight, Phil DeFries goes and takes on Louis Henrique, who, another former UFC vet, which a little bit of an odd title shot that he got there. A very not great fight either. DeFries versus Henrique, one that he ended up getting away with by split decision, which it was kind of one that probably could have went either way, but because it wasn't that great, you don't really care that the outcome was for whoever. It's one of those kind of situations that we got. But then after that, DeFries gets back to doing his thing and kind of looking very solid, takes out Mikhail Kita, TKO, just under a minute into the second round. Kind of erases the memory of that Henrique fight for most people, I would hope, and assume. And then as for Narkun, guy's a monster at light heavyweight. Just had a problem with that matchup at heavyweight, and the size, I think, is kind of the main thing there. And he'll probably, as big of a light heavyweight as he is, I don't know. I just think it's not the most favorable matchup. So we'll see how the rematch goes, and that's what makes it interesting. But as I was getting at, Narkun, 2 very awesome victories against PM. I'm not even gonna Przemysław Mieszla. That might have been it. That might have been it. I'm pretty good at the Asian names now, but still working on the European ones, especially the Polish fighters. PM, though, if you remember from the last heavyweight season of Tough, or maybe not the last one, but one of them, whichever one Maurice Green was on, I think, because I think they fought. Yeah, PM dropped down to light heavyweight. Then Narkun got the submission over him after dropping him in the first round, and that's generally how Narkun fights have gone, especially his wins. He knocks you down with this great striking and then finishes you off on the ground because he is a black belt in BJJ. Very talented guy. Trains with, Jan Blachowicz from time to time. 2 of the best light heavyweights in the world and the best light heavyweight, right? That's Jan Blachowicz now. Yeah, Narkun, very, very good. Would love to see him as much as I love KSW, as I was saying, and I can give them praise all day. They really are phenomenal and don't get enough love. But I would love to see Narkun get out of there and go fight in a new pool, whether it's UFC or Bellator. Either one would be amazing to see him in. How old is he right now? 31. So this is prime time. Hopefully, I don't know his contract status, but if he can take out Phil DeFries, become heavyweight champion, 2-division champ, say, see you later, KSW. Thanks for the cheese so much. Thank you so much for it. I really appreciate it. But I want to go capture some more titles, see if I can prove I am the best fighter from Poland and in the world by having a dream fight with Jan Blachowicz. That would be awesome to see. Narkun, as I said, very talented light heavyweight, can beat several guys who are ranked in Bellator and the UFC's divisions now. He is that good, you guys. But just in terms of this matchup, it's a little bit hard for me to get excited for it, considering how it went down the first time. But these champion versus champion KSW rematches, though, historically have been pretty crazy. I mean, recently, if we want to look at the most recent one, I guess it wasn't champion versus champion. I was going to go with Khalidov and Askham, but the former king of middleweight taking on the new king and the guy that beat him, that was crazy, obviously. And then Khalidov and Narkun's 2 fights. The first bout where Narkun pulled off the amazing upset to be the first guy to snap, the guy who snapped Khalidov's very long winning streak. I want to say 9 years or so. It could have been longer than that, 8 or 9, or in that range, that ballpark. That was a fight of the year candidate for 2018. Narkun and Khalidov won. If you haven't seen it, go check that shit out. Like, that was phenomenal. Second fight, the rematch. It was solid, but more convincing, clearer win for Narkun. So I don't know. I think that, let's see, was that the first and only? No, he's had a rematch before. I was going to say, was that the only rematch of his career? No, it was not. He had a series of bouts with Goran Reljic, right from UFC as well back in the day, who is his only other loss in his last 11 fights, because Narkun is 9-1 in his last 10, with that only loss being at heavyweight to DeFries. So guy's on a run himself. Lost to Reljic, though, in their first encounter in 2014, then came back, defeated him, knocked him out in the first round under 2 minutes. So rebounded nicely and got vengeance, I guess you could say. And that is his only other rematch. And then aside from Khalidov, who he beat more soundly than in the first fight. So if we're going to go by that, Narkun adapts very well to opponents that he's fought already. And somebody as good as Khalidov, if he was able to beat him more soundly than the first time, that's probably proof enough that, despite the weight difference that is going to be here again, I should probably be more competitive. I've talked myself into it now a little bit. I am a bit more interested in it. Just looking at things here like that. I just love Narkun in general. That guy is awesome. Great fighter. Really, really entertaining. And, I'm very high on him, as as you can tell. And Phil DeFries, he has turned things around and become, a top tier heavyweight for the most part in KSW. And, been doing his thing there very nicely. He's the champ. I mean, what more do you want from him? So very interesting, and I'm going to be very interested to see the lead up to this fight, because that's the thing about KSW. They get you hyped. They get you invested. I might not be ultra excited right now. As I just said, I had to talk myself into it a bit, but once they get rolling out those promos and the packages, the video packages, I'm going to be all on board, because that's how good KSW's video production, their production quality, their production value, all that shit, tippy top. Them and RIZIN are hands down the best in MMA, not even close. It looks like movies, the stuff that they put together. Just go look at the Khalidov Askham 2-1 if you need a good example. Like, that one's incredible. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting rematch. I've talked myself into it, as I said. So KSW doing good stuff with their champions, always fun with their main events typically. And also on that card, they already have the lightweight title bout is going to be taking place as well. Marian Ziolkowski. I'm going to do my best not to butcher the European names here, the Polish names in particular, against I can't even do his. I can't do it. Masiej Kazeshko. I'm gonna assume. Just they're tough. They're tough ones, you guys. But Narkun and DeFreeze, that's a lot easier to say. So yeah, lightweight title on the line before the heavyweight title. Champ versus champ, super fight, rematch, main event. Gonna be fun. KSW cards, shows in general, just a ton of fun. They know what to do it. They know how to do it. Put together very exciting cards and fights that their audience, and I think just typically the MMA audience that knows about them, loves to see. Just a good time always with KSW. So that is going to be April 24th. April is just loaded. Goodness gracious. What a great April 24th. That's the same day as UFC 261. What a great lead in for UFC 261. Am I right? So KSW always finishes up like right about before UFC events start. So there you go. That's a fun MMA day. It's always good when they go back to back like that. But all right. I think that is where we will leave it on that note. Hit all the topics today, you guys. Hope you enjoyed the conversation and the discussion about all the things going on in the world of MMA outside of the UFC, because there is so much more going on out there. A lot, especially right now. April, May, man, it is loaded. Shit ton of tournaments, title fights, new debuts. I mean, you name it, it is pretty much going on right now in MMA, the MMA world in general. So a lot of good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff for the Body Lock, pumping out content weekly, always doing, some, we got the Fight Business podcast, we got the Fight Companions, all that good stuff. So like, share, subscribe, notification bell, you know where it is. We're here at the Body Lock, you guys. So until next time, Drake Riggs, this has been Drake's Takes. I will see you when I see you.